Guardians of the Galaxy Vol.2 is directed and written by James Gunn and stars Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Dave Bautista, Michael Rooker, Karen Gillan, Pom Klementieff, and Kurt Russell, with voices provided by Bradley Cooper and Vin Diesel. I remember going to see the previous Guardians movie and really wondering if my wife was going to enjoy it. The last time I had picked a movie off of how it looked, it was our first date and we went to see Sin City. Not exactly the best choice for either of us, but it actually ended up as a foundational moment in our relationship. Anyway, I wasn't sure if she was going to like Guardians of the Galaxy, but she did. She laughed a lot, really enjoyed it, and it's actually become one of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies that we've seen the most. So for Guardians 2, sure enough, our date night comes around and we go we'd both been looking forward to Guardians 2, and so opening weekend, get to do a date night and go out and see it. Let me start off by saying it's a beautiful looking movie. It is very character driven and it's an emotion filled movie, which isn't really something that you would say necessarily with the MCU films. I mean, there's definitely emotion and character development, but I think this one takes all of that to the max on what James Gunn did, and also the performances by the actors. I knew from stories I read and news bites that I had heard on YouTube from various news outlets about the release of the movie that Guardians 2 was going to deal with family issues. Obviously, we're following Peter Quill, and he just found out at the end of Volume 1 that his dad is not of Earth, that he is some rare type of being that the Nova Corps has not, they don't know what he is. And so that seed is planted there for, obviously he didn't know who his dad was and he always wondered who his dad was. But now I think it's even more in the front of his brain, who is my dad? And so we knew that going into this movie we were going to deal with Peter Quill and his father. What we didn't know was also we were going to dive deeper into the relationship between Gamora and Nebula and their very unique sisterhood, being daughters of Thanos. We also have is an interesting change of dynamic between Rocket and Groot. Groot now being baby Groot and having the mind of a baby, and Rocket moving from the sort of rebellious young one to having to be sort of responsible for this smaller being. So again, to the overall positives, the design of this movie is top notch. I will be very surprised if they are not nominated for Academy Awards. If they're not, they deserve to be. The alien designs, the world designs, the CGI, the practical effects, everything melds together seamlessly in this movie. It is all bright, and it's actually, you can already see the effects of the design in other MCU movies. If you look at the Thor Ragnarok trailer, that is already adopting the color scheme and imagery in what we've seen so far in the trailers, with Jeff Goldblum's character and even just specific scenes out in space that are going on in that trailer. But the design, top notch. Kudos to David White, who led the makeup effects on everybody. I think Gamora looked a lot better than she did in the last movie. Drax, I think they've toned down his green a little bit more to maybe change his tone or shade of green from Gamora's a little bit even more. But he's all those tattoos, they all still look amazing. And from what I've read, they've sped up the application process for everyone involved in the makeup. They've gone down, some of them from 5 hours in the chair to maybe 1 or 3 hours. and used a lot of different newer products that aren't as toxic to the folks that have to sit there and the actors be under all of this makeup. But the CG in the movie was great. It doesn't feel fake at all. If you look at behind the scenes, you see they're on green screens and blue screens a lot, but they did an amazing job making it look realistic. And there's a lot of movies now, sadly, where you can see that it's definitely a fake environment. I go immediately to a lot of the scenes in Man of Steel or in Batman vs. Superman. Not that I'm saying anything else about the movies, but you can definitely tell that those environments they do not seem as real as they do in Guardians. So another positive, the movie is very cosmic, very comic centric. I mean, if you love any of the stories of Nova or any of the cosmic universe or of I'll say it, Adam Warlock or the Watchers, I mean, Peter's dad is a freaking planet, and you see the planet. You see a planet with a beard in this movie, and it's amazing. And it's something that you never thought you would see in a movie, but they've just been going for it, and that's what I really have to commend James Gunn and Kevin Feige and the MCU. They're going for these stories, and you can either hop on and accept it, which seems to be what most everybody's done, or there's those out there that it's not their cup of tea, which is fine. But just you have to acknowledge that these guys are taking huge risks, and they're just, hey, let's do it. Let's get the movie out, and this is the story. They're not shying away from the comic element of these movies. Right now, for a little bit of the negatives, there's always a negative. As I said, a positive of the movie was the emotion. I think it's also a negative sometimes. At times it feels like it's a little CW in the emotion where you have, all right, everybody, we need to now talk and discuss what's going on and what we're all feeling, so that way we make sure everybody knows what everybody else is feeling. Sometimes they could have just left things unsaid and just let the moment be there. Sort of at the end, when this forced upon Gamora, Peter Quill love, is it will they, won't they, that they're leading towards, at the end of the movie they have that, yes, they are kind of developing something there, but then they actually have to say, this is the unspoken thing. And I don't think they need to say that, because it's an unspoken thing. It's unspoken. You don't need to go deeper and tell us that. I did like what they did with Gamora. She, outside of the romance that they're doing, they gave her some more action scenes that I think took her towards a step towards being viewed as the most dangerous assassin in the galaxy. But I think they still have a way to go. I think they need to really push that, and it could just be this is the MCU version of the character. They have her antithesis, or her opposite is Nebula, who's so emotionless before this movie and very violent. And so I think they're trying to do a sort of a yin and yang with those two. But I think they do need to show her more lethal side. And they did do some of that, especially with the fight between Nebula and Gamora. But I think they need to do it a little bit more. Outside of the fight between Nebula and Gamora, I think the action sort of was flat. Especially when you introduce enemies who use a very awesome arcade type fighting mechanism, so that way they limit casualties, but that also took away stakes from the enemy side on losing ships or anything. There was no stakes on that side of the battle, so it really took a little bit out of those fights for me. Then there were two of them, I think another one, Drax, hilarious. Dave Bautista, his timing. James Gunn was able to actually write for Dave Bautista in this role this time, knowing his timing and how he can deliver. And I think he was great. But he needed to be the destroyer. He needed to be in battle. And the big battle sequence that he is in is at the beginning of the movie in the opening credits. And we're focused on Baby Groot dancing. So while that was amazing and hilarious and great, it also took away some moments where we could have seen some extra development of Drax on the other side of his personality. The destroyer, the fighter. Another negative was Yondu's death. They fully develop this character. They give him this amazing prison break from the Ravagers with Rocket and Groot, or Baby Groot, and he then, I guess, just becomes expendable. His arc was done. They, didn't have a need for him anymore. But Michael Rooker just did such a great job as Yondu that it's sad to see him not being able to do that role again in another cosmic movie. So to wrap things up, I really enjoyed the movie. It had great design, amazing design. The character development was great, and there was a lot of intense emotion that was very unexpected for an MCU movie. And a special shout out goes to Sean Gunn. He did amazing as Kraglin in this movie. Not only does he play Kraglin, one of the Ravagers, but he's also the stand-in for Rocket on set. And he just brings a great element to this movie. Kraglin in this, they increased his role, and he just did a great job. And it's good to see those brothers supporting each other like that. Go see Guardians Vol.2. You won't be disappointed. It's not as good as the first one, but it is a very good movie. I think it'll be one of the few times where you'll actually curse Kurt Russell. As great a guy he is, there's a moment where you're just you really do not like him anymore. But that's my review of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below.